Dang, remember those Overwatch update videos? They still exist, but yeah, I always found the update explanations to be inspiring. Last video, I asked and coded a hypothetical. What if Pokemon was a hero shooter? And I opened the floor for some feedback and character suggestions. I never said this outright, but I ended up using the top comments to determine who I should work on next. But before I reveal who I actually modeled and rigged at the end of this video, I wanted to show off a fully fleshed set of moves for the first two characters. When I was first coding this project, I actually planned to use a third-person camera, because then I won't need to have separate animations for the player's perspective. However, I didn't finish connecting animations in my previous video. But by now, I have successfully ported the Blender animations into Godot. They're really jank at the moment as I'm still pretty new to 3D animations, but I'm telling myself, quote, make it exist first and make it good later. We'll see how things pan out as I get more comfortable with the 3D medium and hopefully with making environments. So between the boom and zoom, let's start with the latter. In the last video, I mentioned how the lack of vertical mobility made the zoom character feel less entertaining than the boom character. Now rocket jumping is a tall order to match, but giving invisibility, invincibility, and mad hops ultimately felt ill-fitting. Like, have you seen Ceruledge in other Pokemon media? I don't know if they've ever turned invisible. Anyways, in the last episode, I wanted to call that invisibility move some kind of phantom step. Like how Dragapult uses Phantom Force in Pokemon Unite to turn invisible, only to pull off the same move in the Ceruledge short. But before I point out that Ceruledge never turns invisible here, Phantom Force is a move in the main games where the Pokemon becomes unhittable for a turn, before coming back to deal damage. Being invisible is one thing, but to also grant immunity kinda takes away from the stealthy experience as you're no longer punished for being reckless. In fact, this is one of those mechanics that introduces another kind of gameplay in the shooter template, that being stealth in this case, where these genre mixing abilities are something that I absolutely adore. So with this move, I've kept the vertical mobility with the multiple jumps, but it no longer grants invincibility. But I did let you phase through an enemy so far. Ideally, if you're overlapping with anyone, it should give off a faint glow, like what TF2 Spy does when you bump into someone. This isn't in the game so far because I'm still wrestling with the shaders. Also, the intangibility is done by redefining the character's layers, which means that they would actually be able to bump into the opposing side's invisible ghosts. Will they also get to see them? Maybe. We can revisit this move at a later time, because I'm actually planning on confiscating this from Big Pants here, as they're being redefined to be less of a stealth character and more of a teleporting assassin. In the Pokemon Horizons anime, the dub says that Ceruledge uses Phantom Force, just like the aforementioned Dragapult. Even Pokemon Unite Ceruledge has Phantom Force, but here they pop in and out of portals. Okay, don't get too excited because I didn't code portals from Portal just yet. Feel like that kind of mechanic would be better suited for a slower, tankier supporting role than for a roamer who isn't near their team most of the time. So you know what? I'm calling that old invisible stepping move some kind of a shadow sneak, while redefining the Phantom move to be closer to Overwatch Reaper's teleport. Now, I don't want to copy Reaper's teleport 1-to-1. Mind you, it's not because of any legal reasons, because number 1, gameplay mechanics should not be patented, and number 2, this is all just a casual side project. But Reaper Overwatch's teleport is balanced to be pretty slow, forcing you to perform an emote before repositioning. That's why this move is usually called before a fight, not during one. But how bad would it be if you could still swing for those few seconds? Instead, the teleportation would just pop off after 2 seconds while only telegraphing for 1. But all this teleportation talk reminded me of yet another move from another game. Deadlock is Valve's newest hero shooter game, where it's basically a third-person MOBA complete with lanes and minions. So the character Pocket has a cloak that they could throw out, which deals damage, but if they select it again mid-flight, they would teleport to where the cloak is. I was reminded of this move because of how the move Nightshade was animated in Generation... Actually, no. This is how Nightshade is animated in Pokemon Showdown, where you throw out a ghostly image of yourself towards the opponent. That's what made me think of Pocket Deadlock's cloak, and here it is in the game. In Deadlock, the cloak runs across the ground, And while I could implement that here by just adding gravity, so far I allow you to throw this up in the air so that you could get some massive air time. I don't know if this makes this too powerful compared to the other teleporting move I just made, because it is a bit more obvious where you'll end up, but you could fake your opponent out by not teleporting at all. So currently this move has a longer cooldown. Remember, I wanted you to be able to choose 4 moves from a move pool. I mean, I did lock down at least one move to be the signature move that couldn't be changed, but usually the other 3 could be shuffled around. So this character so far has Blades, a Flaming Charge, a Phantom Teleport, and a Nightshade. Huh. I guess I need to make at least one more move so that you actually have a choice, right? Enter Flare Blitz. Team Fortress 2's Demo Man is one of the few characters of the game where their secondary is arguably more iconic than their primary. So that having a drastically different option for that secondary leads to such a different kind of gameplay that people refer to these loadouts as subclasses. So for Demo Man, their secondaries are usually sticky bombs, which were originally supposed to be traps that you could lay down on the walls and floor, but a lot of people just used it as explosive that could detonate midair. But all that damage can be traded for a shield, which basically provides mobility and even buffs melee weapons to encourage a more melee playstyle. I didn't implement the melee part of this charge, but what I wanted to try replicating the most here was Trimping. But Trimping is a community term that refers to charging into a slope and moving side to side to gain speed and fly across the map. Luckily, this is more of an artifact from how these games calculate physics for the player, where I can link the tutorial that I followed down in the description. There are several versions of this charge in TF2, and while giving turn controls feels the most fun, here I actually went in to restrict the player from turning too much, forcing them to commit to a direction that they charged in. Slamming into someone deals massive damage, but grazing past them, well, I can make it deal damage, but I took it away so that the other flaming charge has more of a use, which, by the way, has been updated so that you can now charge backwards, makes it hop back a little even though it's not as strong as charging forwards. The charge is mostly useful for giving you a speed boost for 8 seconds. If I keep the charge's cooldown at 3 seconds like this means that you could stack up to +3 speed when timed correctly. I know the move Flare Blitz in Pokemon also gives you recoil, but if it's going to be pretty hard to slam into anyone in the first place, I don't think the recoil damage is necessary. And besides, when you're charging in a straight line, you are already making yourself more vulnerable. You know, I still find the rocket jumping a bit more exciting. So this might be overkill, but I added a little boost when you swing and walk forward. It's relatively harmless on the ground, but since I allowed you to jump continuously, you can bunny hop to ridiculous speeds. This might be too much for like the second character of the game, yet I don't know if I should also confiscate this from them, or if it's okay to let them have horizontal momentum. Let me know what you think below. But for now, I think that's a wrap for the Zoom. I'm more content with redefining this character to pop in and out of battles through teleports, rather than ruining a stealth mechanic. Don't worry though, I'll be using that move on someone else. Now while I went over the Boom guy more deeply in the last video, I've added a few moves for this guy as well. So as a refresher, this guy basically has a rocket launcher, where they could jump and even charge up a shot if they don't have to move Flamethrower. Because if they do have Flamethrower, that charged shot is replaced with a spray that could double as a jetpack. And for the third move, they get access to the aforementioned Flaming Charge. So, in this fight between Armor Rouge and Cerulege, they show off a relatively recent move here, Expanding Force. Ever since this move was introduced in Sword and Shield, it became a pretty popular move in Pokemon's official competitive format. So what's actually happening in Expanding Force? Well, according to the decks, it attacks the target with its psychic power. This move's power goes up and... Wait, what? I thought this move was supposed to reference the expansion of the universe or something. But the reason why this move is so popular in VGC is that the single targeting move isn't just powered up by psychic terrain, but they got a further damage buff and they now hit both opponents. For now, let's just focus on Expanding Force, which lets you place a box that starts an animation before you pierce the heavens. This move is really about crowd control, majorly telegraphing the area before dealing any damage. But I felt a bit devious here. You know, this box going up just made me think about how the characters in the box could also be knocked. This got me thinking. Should this apply just for the enemies? Like, this could disrupt whatever they're doing. Or should this also affect the teammates, which can let them access different areas? I ultimately made this knockback pretty small, and it currently affects everyone, even if it only damages enemies. But the worst part, or maybe the best part about all this, is how the player can combo this with their charge. Oh my gosh, I spent all this time to make the other character feel just as fun as this rocket guy, and here I go again, giving this guy even more mobility. Guess their normal speed would be pretty mid though. Honestly, both of their speeds are nothing to write home about. Oh well, I guess one would have a harder time to confirm kills with the rocket launcher. Oh yeah, this guy only has 4 moves right now. Let's see. The last idea I had here was giving them a heat wave, where they push enemies back whilst dealing damage. This shove isn't anything revolutionary. I guess it's a way to deal immediate close range damage, which the other moves can't. Oh, and now since I actually animated the models, I can explain how there are multiple modes here. So you can switch weapons for certain characters, right? Like there's weapon switching for TF2, but also in Marvel Rivals, or even different stances of Bastion in Overwatch. I actually don't know what they do anymore in Overwatch 2. But with this cannon out, the player would have less defense and special defense than if they had equipped certain other moves. TF2 kind of inadvertently balances rocket jumping by dealing damage to yourself, but I didn't include that because I wanted you to jump around continuously. We can nerf this guy if we need to later. But for now, let's finally talk about that next character that I modeled. There were a lot of great comments in the last video, many of which I am considering, but I hope you can see how there's a lot of work required in game dev. So let's not bite off more than we could chew and take it one step at a time. The top 2 comments of the last video mentioned Ditto and Mimikyu, but strangely, this description seemed that they were both talking about a similar gimmick, disguising as another. This is a classic mechanic that pretty much started with TF2 Spy, as it was initially a bug that the developers refined into a feature. It's largely unique to TF2 because the Spy keeps their kit instead of copying the moves that they're disguising as. It can have a slower yet calculating gameplay that plays into the stealth mechanic very well. But I must say, between the Shapeshifter Ditto and the Master Pretender Mimikyu, the character that encapsulates this ability the most was the Zoro. If you want to see this become a series, please like and share the video. If you like game dev discussions like this, follow the channel, as those are the kind of videos I've been making for quite some time by now. So what are your thoughts on this update? We're just having fun here, so comment on what kind of character or mechanic you want to eventually see in the sandbox of a side project, because I do end up reading all of them. I want to thank my Patreon members for their direct support of my projects, and thank you for watching till the end. If there's enough interest in this video, I can show off the next moveset sooner. But till then, take care.